squat, you cough, you spread your cheeks.
He had 3 of his friends rape me. The next night I killed him. You have to stand at the gate and ask a male officer for toilet paper, and he tells you, he's busy. Use your T-shirt.
I pierced the heart. That's the one that killed her.
It can be a hard time, but what you do is you do the time. You don't let the time do you. Let the time do you. Let the time do you.
Over 800 women call this place home. They live here without their husbands, without their children. The women you're about to meet have murdered their fathers, husbands, and lovers. Some have committed crimes of the heart. Others had a passion for money. During the next hour, we'll take you inside Edna Mahan Prison for stories from the cell block, women behind bars. I'm Rosanna Scotto. We'll be right back.
I was charged with attempted murder against my father and my aunt.
Well, I've seen people argue over a piece of chicken. And then I've seen people argue over girlfriends.
When Edna Mahan Prison opened its gates in 1913, the women who served time here were mostly prostitutes and bad girls who had sex without telling men they had venereal disease. Today, Edna Mahan is still New Jersey's only women's prison. The crimes aren't quite so quaint, but in the spirit of the original prison, murderers, armed robbers, and drug addicts are allowed to roam within a fenced razor wire campus of sorts. But don't be deceived. This pastoral setting is a prison. Ask anyone serving a life sentence here.
It's difficult seeing a lot of girls come in and out with less time, and they go home and come back, and you're still sitting here trying to get a chance to go home.
Laura Kaldawy wasn't groomed for this. Most of her 23 years were spent in the affluent suburb of Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. That was 5 years ago, a lifetime ago, before Laura was sent to this jail for 30 years, charged with the attempted murder of her father and aunt. She was not charged with the near-fatal bludgeoning of her 8-year-old brother. Laura, you're 23 years old, you're in the prime of your life, and now you're a number, not a name. What's this life like?
It's difficult. It took a lot of getting used to and accepting. But for the most part, you really have no choice but to accept it.
Laura, how did you get here?
I was charged with attempted murder against my father and my aunt.
Your co-defendant was your cousin, is your cousin.
Yes.
So are you saying it was his idea to
Yes,
do this?
It was. Since I had trusted him at one point in time, he knew about some of the abuse that I'd been through, and knew the depression that had taken me through, all the changes, almost, attempting suicides. And he just kept bringing them up and kept telling me how much better my life would be without the cause of it being my father.
Laura admits she made some preparations, but had second thoughts. What sort of preparation did you do?
Putting medication into a pot of coffee. And I was supposed to take the cup of coffee upstairs to my father the following morning. And which I ended up doing. But at the last minute I changed my mind and informed my father that something was wrong with the coffee.
So are you saying that you weren't there when your father actually got murdered?
I was not. I came back to the house afterwards, and that's when I found them and called the police.
Was your father still alive?
I'm not sure if he was or not. I couldn't even get too close to him.
Why?
From the sight that I saw. And then I heard my little brother upstairs. And I ran upstairs to see him. And he was still alive. And that's when I called the police.
Even if you can understand the anger that you felt toward your father and toward your aunt, you can't understand what happened to your brother.
I always have and still do love him more than anything. And it hurts about what happened to him. Because it was almost like I raised him. I never wanted anything to happen to him, ever.
Do you realize that you'll probably spend most of your life in this prison?
Yes, I've come to realize that. It's hard sometimes because it feels like I have lost and still am losing what I would consider to be the best years of my life. But there's no way to turn back time and no way to change the situation. And I just have to be able to accept and deal with it at this point, and hopefully one day be able to not make up for what I've lost, but be able to still make a life for myself and my brother. But I am very sorry about what happened. I live with that every day, before I go to sleep and in the morning when I wake up. I think the punishment I've given myself is worse than all this time. I sentenced myself to more than the judge or the state of New Jersey did. It haunts me. It really does. It's a picture right in front of my eyes. It never goes away. No matter what I do or what I try to do, if I don't keep myself busy at all times, it's there when I'm awake, and it haunts me in my sleep.
Do you miss your father?
My mother was taken away, and then my father was taken away. And it's like you're left with nothing. You have no one to turn to, no one for guidance, no one that loves you. And I even, somehow, if he can hear me when I say my prayers, I even say I'm sorry to him and that I love him and miss him. Because regardless of everything else, he was my father. And I'm sure he had his reasons for whatever happened to me. And it feels like I failed him. And even though he's not alive, I hope he can forgive me and still be able to love me. But I do miss him.
It was the night before Christmas, and all through the house on Stratton Street, nothing was stirring.
They entered his bedroom while he was asleep and stabbed him. He staggered through the house, leaving a trail of blood in several rooms, and collapsed and died in the kitchen, where he apparently was attempting to make a telephone call for help.
His pajama top was off, and we could see where he had been stabbed repeatedly. One of the wounds causing his intestines to protrude through his abdomen.
She hated her husband. We recovered a Christmas card in which she expressed how much she hated him.
Diane Downey came home that Christmas 12 years ago. A jury decided the mother of Robert Downey's 3 small children had stabbed her husband to death. Diane Downey is doing life, but says she's innocent.
Diane, how can you prove something like that? How can you prove that you're innocent? It's not easy. It really isn't easy, especially when you can't get back into court because they claim that I'm not indigent, so it's very difficult for me to get an attorney.
What could have triggered such violence with your husband?
I don't know. In all honesty, I can't answer that.
Where do you take yourself from here? I mean, how do you pick up the pieces and go on?
You just do. You have to. I mean, I have 3 kids that believe in me, that I love very, very much. So for them, I have to keep going. If it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have. They keep me going.
What about violence inside jail? Are there lots of fights over things and stuff like that? And
Yeah, there's arguments, there's fights.
like what? Over what?
Sometimes it's stupid things, and then other times it's major.
Give me an example.
Well, I've seen people argue over a piece of chicken. And then I've seen people argue over girlfriends. You know, or it's mostly he say, she say. You know, and they pick up on this and they hear what's being said and they automatically believe it because it's like a world inside a world here. You know, it's different.
How violent does it get inside here?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say how violent it gets, but there's been fisticuffs.
Have you ever gotten hurt inside?
No. Mm-mm. You learn to mind your own business, and people respect you for that.
Okay. Is this really hard time here?
Your time is as hard as you want to make it. It can be a hard time, but what you do is you do the time. You don't let the time do you. You try and keep yourself as busy as possible. You know, like I said, if you want to make it hard time, it can be very hard.
What do you miss most about the outside world?
My kids, being with my family.
Have you been able to talk to them at all about what happened?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I was up front with my kids from the very beginning, even though they were very young at the time. I explained everything to them on their level. You know.
How do you explain that you took away their father?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm not guilty, but I don't know if I can say that on the air.
Why not?
And someday I hope that I can prove that I am not guilty. And I would never stop fighting it.
He had 3 of his friends rape me. The next night I killed him.
I have a lot of remorse in my heart for that girl that I killed. I didn't even know her.
When I turned myself into the police, that was the first day of me saying, Audrey's worth something.
We received a telephone call from a hunter who had been deer hunting up in here on the first day of deer season. I think it was December 8th, 1980. They were doing a drive in here for deer, and at which time they stumbled across the remains of the body. There was nothing left of the body whatsoever. The body had solidified and had gone into the ground. The only thing left of the body was bones, skeletons, skulls, some clothing, a pair of engineered boots or motorcycle boots, a pair of dungarees, a tie-dye shirt, and a very large silver buckle, which we focused our investigation on.
Audrey Burford could have gotten away with murder. Almost 5 years later, Audrey says living with her crime was killing her. Audrey, what was the last thing that triggered you into such violence?
Rape? I think that would do it for just about anyone.
He raped you?
No, he had 3 of his friends rape me.
And then what happened? What did you do?
He laughed at me because I was crying.
So what did you do?
The next night I killed him. You know, it was enough. And this, well, my crime is unique because it went undetected for almost 5 years because I covered up the crime. I called his house and I explained to his mother that he took off. I called his job and I explained nobody missed him. His mother didn't even miss him. I think she was glad to get rid of him because he was living at her house. And when I came along, it was like, well, we'll get the money together, we'll get you a place, and she hooked all that up. I think she was glad to get rid of him. I don't think she expected him to be murdered.
Do you wish that you didn't murder him?
Of course. That's a hard thing to have to deal with for the rest of your life, taking somebody else's life.
What'd you do?
I hit him with a frying pan quite a few times. And there was other people with me, and, you know, what do you do in a situation like that? You know, we were high on drugs, we had been drinking all day, and you lose your, you know, you have no judgment. At that point, I had no more judgment left at all. And we got rid of the body and tried to cover my tracks so that it would go undetected, which it did for quite a long time until I went to the police. Because for that almost 5 years I was running around and I was doing drugs and I was being crazy and I was on a self-destruct. You know, I had nothing else. There was nothing else. As far as I was concerned, my life was over with.
Audrey, when you were hitting him over the head with the frying pan, what was he doing? Was he screaming out for you to help him?
He got drunk. He got drunk and passed out.
And so you hit him while he was passed out, and he never regained consciousness? Did you say anything at all to him before you hit him?
You're not going to hurt me anymore.
Did you ever think you could kill somebody?
No. I was the one that brought the birds with the broken wings home. You know, when my mother heard about it, she said, not Audrey. She couldn't do anything like that. You know, I brought the stray dogs home. You know, I took care of all my little brothers and sisters. I'm the chicken-hearted one. Yeah, I was called Chicken Heart.
Who comes to visit you here? Do you have visits?
I have visits from my mother every other week.
When was the last time you saw your children?
The Christmas before last.
That must be awful.
Well, I try to call, but I'm not a real phone person, so I try not to call too much, because then they won't accept the phone calls. You know, you have to think about all that, you know. Things are really hard. That's all I hear, is there's no money. So I try not to call too much.
What are your days like now? How do you spend your days?
I guess you can compare it to like being underwater, because no matter how hard you fight it, you're still held down. There was a class here that you can take. It's like a 15-week program where they teach you how to stay calm and react in stressful situations. The biggest behavior modification is South Hall, when you have to stand at a gate and ask a male officer for toilet paper, and he tells you, he's busy, use your T-shirt.
Some people would say, I mean, this is not supposed to be easy time. I mean, you say you killed your boyfriend.
But it's not easy time at all.
Was there any other way to get around this abuse with your boyfriend other than to kill him?
I think it was self-preservation. If it had been in Pennsylvania, they would have recognized it as self-defense, and they would have recognized the battered women's syndrome, and I probably wouldn't have done half this much time.
I pierced her heart. That's the woman that killed her.
They say blood is thicker than water. Algebra Posey is doing the max now because at 17 she fought her sister's battle on a street in Orange, New Jersey one night.
It stimulated from a fight through my sister. She was fighting and she got cut. Her finger got like cut and it was like hanging off, and she came and got me, and we all goes up there. I have 3 co-defendants and we went up there, you know, to fight them. You know, we didn't think the fight that would get out of hand. You know, it was just to go fisticuffs, street talk. And it got out of hand, and she drew a knife, I drew a knife, she cut me, I stabbed her, and...
You stabbed her 4 times?
Yeah, you know, it was, you know...
How do you live with something like that?
Well, it's real complicated to live with knowing that you have taken someone's life, and I believe that a lot of us, well, me, I believe that I needed therapy, but I was just too rebellious to seek therapy because I didn't want to share what I was going through with anyone, because at the age of 16, I lost my mother, and I was real bitter, and I was going through changes behind that. And when I first came into this facility, you know, I gave them a lot of problems. I let the love for my sister get involved with me as far as going out there and do wrong. I had a choice before I went up there and decided to fight in my sister's defense. I had a choice to say, show and go to the police, which is my sister, or we can go up there and fight. And I chose to do the wrong thing, so this is what I have to do. I have to do this time. I have to pay for what I've done. And, you know, I have a lot of remorse in my heart for that girl that I killed. I didn't even know her. I found out during my incarceration that she had 3 kids. You know, so her 3 kids is motherless. My heart goes out to her, but I have to also look at it. That could have been me. She could have killed me. And my intentions was not to take her life, but I did. And I know it's a price that I have to pay, and I'm doing it now. I'm giving them this time. But in the process of giving them this time, I'm learning something. I'm learning about me, because I know I'm here for a reason. Allah put me here for a reason, and I'm searching for it. Because I know I have a purpose in life. I have a goal. And my goal so far is to find out who I am, and that's what I'm learning, who Algebra is. Because, I mean, like I said, I gave this institution a lot of problems, and now that I've made my change, I mean, they don't just directly look at my change. They look at, well, she did this and did that. They don't look at what I'm doing now, because I gave myself a reputation in this facility. And, you know, I just have to continue to do the right thing in order to be recognized for my good now.
Did you get in some fights with people here in prison?
No, I've never lost a fighting charge. My problem is I didn't want to abide by the officers, more so that. But like I said, I had to learn that. So now, you know, an officer would say, Algebra, you have a direct order to go in your room. It's no problem now. But had it been when I was 18 and came into this facility, I wasn't going in my room. I was going to take the charge because that's, you know, at the age of 18, you know, you think you're grown and you be rebellious, and you just at this age of I'm finally grown. I don't have to listen to what nobody tell me to do, and that's the stage that I was going through at the time because I grew up here. You know, my family didn't raise me. They don't even know me, and you know, like when I may get on that phone and talk to them, and they call me by my nickname Gina. That's weird to me because I'm Algebra now. I know who I am today. I'm not Gita anymore. Gita is what's got me here, living that street life. I'm no longer living that. I'll be going up for parole this year. And basically right now what I'm doing in this facility, I'm focusing on my GED because I want to be a registered nurse. And in order to do that, I have to have the education behind it. So I know it's definitely going to be complicated because I have a conviction. I don't think any conviction is minute, but I have one. And it's also a homicide, and I know I'm gonna have a lot of problems, but I'm very determined, and I don't think my determination is gonna let anything defeat me, because I want to be a registered nurse, and I think I have the willpower and the guts and the determination to get it.
He wanted his wife dead and me caught. You squat, you cough, you spread your cheeks. I didn't kill because I wanted to, because I got in a fight, because it was something to do. I killed because I was told to kill.
Mary does not want you to see her face. That's not because she isn't young or very pretty. It's because she doesn't want to haunt her victim's family any more than she already has. Mary murdered her lover's wife, the mother of young children.
I got involved with an older married man. And over the course of time, over a year, it got to the point where he controlled and manipulated and brainwashed every movement and every thought and every action that I did. And he wanted his wife dead and me caught, and that's how he set it up. But it didn't work out like that. I didn't get caught. I turned myself in.
You turned yourself in?
Yes.
Why?
I was on the verge of committing suicide. I wasn't raised to kill anybody, and I couldn't live with that. And I was on the verge, literally on the verge of committing suicide when I picked up the phone and turned myself in.
You know, this sounds like you were the original Amy Fisher. Is it glamorous to kill?
No, there's nothing glamorous about it.
What was it like? What did you do?
I did what I was told to do.
What were you told to do?
Kill her, stab her, and leave the scene. And that was it, because the way it was set up, I should have been caught. After the crime, over the course of 8 months or so, he deprogrammed me. Once I got away from him and I was no longer under his control, then I realized that I had killed somebody that I didn't want to kill, that didn't deserve to die, that had no reason to die, and I couldn't live with it. And I told many people, and they all just sort of patted me on the head and told me to go home and don't worry about it.
You're sitting here crying. You're obviously sorry for what you did.
Oh yeah, I was sorry for it to the point that I turned myself in without advice of counsel or anything else.
What happened to your lover?
He got a lot of time.
Do you hear from him at all?
Oh no. I saw him one day in the county jail. It was very soon after we were arrested. And if looks could kill, I would have been dead.
This whole thing sounds like a movie. It sounds like Fatal Attraction, and now all this information came out about Amy Fisher and Joey Buttafuoco. What was going through your mind at the time?
Joey's guilty as hell. He is guilty as hell, and I feel so bad for Mary Jo that she is sticking with him. It's that Italian pride that makes the female stick with the man, and that is hogwash. Kick him out of the house, out of your life, get a self-esteem, get on with your life, and get rid of that bum.
And what about Amy? How do you feel about Amy?
I feel very sorry for her because she's young and she's been thrown into a situation like I was that she probably didn't understand. She's living in an environment that she's never come across, and she'll have to grow up in there.
Do you ever think about your victim?
Every day of my life.
What do you think about?
That she didn't deserve to die.
Was there any way you could make it up?
To whom?
Family? Her children?
How do you do that? I destroyed her family. He destroyed her family. Destroyed my family. Can't make it up. You can only go on.
Tell me about relationships here. Has there been much pressure for you to engage in a sexual relationship here?
If you want to, it's available. If you don't want to, you're free to choose not to. And there are some instances where women have had trouble, but that's not the norm for this place. I mean, society thinks when a woman goes to prison, it's the hardened, some big, mean, dyke-looking woman who, you know, is muscle-bound, and she's going to take the new fish, you know, the new prisoner, and, you know, rape her in the shower with a broomstick or whatever, and it's not like that at all. I mean, society has such a warped view on what prison is.
Well, what is it like? What is it like when you're the new fish in the prison and someone wants to start a relationship with you?
It's probably scary for that person, and they probably either succumb to it or choose not to. It depends on the woman's self-esteem, her intellectual level, her need level.
You're not the typical person who you see in jail.
No.
I mean, your family had to be hysterical.
And they're still devastated by it.
What are your visits like?
Like a two-edged sword. We sit across from each other in chairs. You're allowed a kiss hello and a kiss goodbye, a hug hello and a hug goodbye, and they basically also put a time limit on that. If they feel you're kissing too long, they'll come over and say, okay, that's enough. We're patted down going in and strip searched after. They make us take off all our clothes and literally every article of clothing, and you squat, you cough, you spread your cheeks, you show behind your ears, through your hair, in your mouth. If you have dentures, you take them out. Thank God I have all my teeth. That's one less agony to go through. It's a tragedy because everyone comes to prison because they have no self-esteem, because they have problems in their life, and they come to prison and they can't fix them. And so it just perpetuates the revolving door cycle. Then it's not doing anything. It's costing the taxpayers a fortune. And it's a waste of money. It's such a waste. It does no good. Prison doesn't rehabilitate, the prisoner does. And I have done that.
You think it's a joke to be in here? Have you ever been to bed with a woman?
I could lie in a girl's face.
Like what Santa sent us.
Ah, two new dollies to play with.
When Hollywood goes to women's prisons, it's always the same. The wicked warden, lesbian lovers, really tight uniforms, and catfights. Well, here's what maximum security really looks like.
I need the shampoo, Tony.
What are you in for? Aggravated assault. What'd you do? I could lie in a girl's face.
And now you're in beauty school?
Yes.
No matter how ugly prison life gets, an inmate needs a manicure. And although a bad perm is a prison cliche, this is also one of the only programs where the inmates learn a trade.
It's like really good on my self-esteem, you know, doing something positive with my time while I'm here.
Upon release, the only thing they have to do is either go work in a fast food place and flip burgers for $3 an hour, or go back to sell drugs. I mean, a lot of these women have families, and the alternative, given that, they're going to end up selling drugs to survive. A program like this will give them something to do on, once they get out of here. At least they have a career, and the money's really well to start for a cosmetologist once they get out.
I always was interested in hair, but I never took the time to study. And now I have the time, so I'm taking the time, and it's not as bad as I thought it was. So I'm very interested in it, and I don't feel that it's going to be that bad because I have girlfriends that are already in their own shops, and they've offered me, a job.
Thank you for calling New Jersey Travel and Tourism. This is Colleen speaking. May I have the extension that you're calling?
New Jersey and you, perfect together. At least that's what the inmates say. The state pays maximum security prisoners the minimum to answer calls to their 800 tourism number. The irony of planning other people's vacations when they may never see the light of day isn't lost on anyone here.
Your New Jersey state map will be delivered to you in approximately 2 to 4 weeks. I thank you for calling, and you have a good day.
There used to be a lot more than this, but the Budget Acts fell here and killed almost all the programs. Any hopes of rehabilitation, psychiatric counseling, getting a college degree have faded. Now, you just do time.
What's it like trying to rehabilitate prisoners when you're faced with so many budget cuts?
Well, it's obviously very difficult. This institution is not facing anything any different than any of the other institutions, and we're all having to try and obviously be more creative, exercise a greater degree of assessment with the needs and establishing of priorities and meeting those needs. Obviously, I don't think any administrator in this day and age feels that they're in an ideal time to manage an institution, but it's a time in which you have to manage an institution with a great deal of discretion and utilize some common sense with what you're trying to do. And we all, I think, attempt to utilize the services of volunteers more effectively, and we have to try and do a little bit more with a little less.
This prison is terribly overcrowded. It must be frightening and frustrating at the same time.
Well, it's very frustrating in that it's the only women's institution that there is within the state of New Jersey. So there is no back door at this institution in terms of having to separate individuals from one institution to another where you could transfer various people. And that is probably the worst issue, trying to keep a handle or a tracking mechanism on those people that do not house well together, who you may have to transport differently. So that day-to-day is the thing that we always have to watch out for with classification purposes.
One program that survives is a Scared Straight type lifers group. The women you've met are all involved. They try to keep younger offenders from growing up to be them.
We have the kids come up, and we talk to them. Sometimes they're rap sections, and we just talk to them and explain our story to them and tell them what it's like living here in prison. Sometimes we get a little more aggressive with them.
What do you say to those kids to scare them straight?
I would say, you think it's a joke to be in here? You ever been to bed with a woman? We use the homosexuality a lot. We just tell them about how everything's stripped from, everything's stripped from you when you come here. And that the only thing that you really have to hold on to is your education. You're not nobody here but a number. They don't care what happens to you if you're sick and you wait to see the doctor. You might die before you see that doctor. Or either you die or you're better by the time you see the doctor. And then when you see him, you don't get no results anyway. To get in school, it's a waiting list, unless you're under 21. And then you have to go to school. It's mandatory. But the classes they have here aren't really what they should have. I mean, how do you prepare somebody for society? How do you lock somebody up and just warehouse them? Because that's all they're doing. They're warehousing us. You put a person back out on the street with nothing to go to. Most of them don't have a home to go to. They have no family backing them up. You go in placement, and the placement is hotels where it's drug-infested prostitution areas. So you're setting a person back into the same environment with no education, no nothing to fall back on, no money. I mean, what can you expect of them but to survive and fall back into the same environment?
We try to tell them what it's like to be here, what the different housing units are like, max units to grounds units, like I did over 5 years in a max unit, which is not an easy thing to do and keep your sanity. It's really not easy. that there really is nothing here for them. And crime is not, I mean, drugs, sex, whatever they're into on the street is not the thing to do. That their education should be the most important thing in their life right now.
If you're having any problems, go talk to somebody that you can trust. If you're being verbally and emotionally abused at home, go talk to a teacher. Talk to somebody who's going to tell you that you're a good person and look at your good points. Because not everybody has all good and bad points. It varies up and down. There's all that grayness. Talking to the kids in the lifers group, a lot of them are, caught up in all that, the troubled families. I think they need to talk to some of their counselors at school and not get caught up in that abuse, because you can change your life.
On the streets, education didn't mean anything to me, and even when I came to this facility, education didn't mean anything to me, and I decided to rebel and not go to school, get charges for not wanting to go to school, and this facility has helped me a lot. I mean, it took me to get close to the end of my bus to realize that education is important. I need that in order to survive and take care of my son.
You start out in a dorm, and it's a room about the size of this, and there's 14 beds in it, bunk beds. So there's never any quiet. You've always got people going in and out. You're what they call locked in at 10:15. The whole building is locked down. And you gradually move up to a room where you eventually have your own room where you can go in during the day and close the door. But on the end of each wing are grill gates. To go into any of the rec rooms, you have to have an officer unlock the grill gates, and then you can either go into the gym, or each wing has their own rec room. Okay? To come out of your room, you have to have a good reason. You just don't float anywhere you want to float.
Our cameras weren't allowed to move freely inside the MAX unit either. We can't show you what Diane Downey is describing.
You don't go outside when you want to go. You go outside when they tell you to go.
They don't treat us like human beings, a lot of the officers. I think custody has it confused with punishment. They're custody. We're already being punished. And they are just holding us here as a warehouse at this point, when you take away all the educational programs. The only ones that are guaranteed education are the under 21, because of state law.
As you've seen yourself, there are two very distinct and different aspects of this institution. One has a great deal of closure to it. The other is more open and less restrictive, which obviously will impact on any type of feeling that you may have during the course of the day. Is it more sad than scary here? Well, you don't want to minimize concerns regarding overall security and safety. I think having the experience of being in a women's institution and dealing more directly with the women and their families and their concerns regarding their families, I think causes more concern regarding personalized issues than you may have had in other institutions. You seem to feel something more tangible that draws you to the concerns and issues regarding women and what they're facing.
You gave birth on a Thursday.
Thursday morning. Friday I was back in court at 4 o'clock, so I spent one full day with her.
I've lost a lot of time in here with my children, but I've gained a lot for myself.
You get used to not having the things that you need, like seeing your kids. They say, I wish you were here, Mom, but, I can't be there.
Mother's Day might be the worst day of the year in a women's prison. Almost 90% of these inmates have children.
It must be so difficult for you to be in here and see your children growing up out there without you.
It is very.
I mean, to see your kids, I mean, they were what, 2 through
They were
9 or something?
4, 6, and 8 when I came here.
4, 6, and 8.
Yes. It is. It's very difficult. And to even try to explain it to you, I don't think I can. I can't explain that emotion.
So how do you cope with that?
Knowing that they're there for me helps me to cope. Helps me to deal with it, that they'll be there. And they are there.
Well, I can say that they're well taken care of, and I'm thankful for that. And I miss them, but I see them.
You're missing them growing up, though.
Yes,
That must be hard.
very hard.
What do you say to them?
Well, I tell them that I've done something wrong, and I won't be with them for a while, and, you know.
That must kill you.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
Armed robber Lynette Monroe gave birth to her baby girl right here, and the next day said her goodbyes.
The nurse came, they took me to Stevens Hospital, that's on the grounds, the premises of Clinton. And from there they called the ambulance. Then the ambulance took me to Trenton, Mercer Medical. At the time they was you had your baby at Mercer Medical Center. And I got to Trenton about 10 o'clock, and I had her at 4:58 Thursday morning.
How long were you able to keep your baby after you gave birth?
I was back at Clinton Friday before 4 o'clock count, because I was in a max unit then.
So wait a second. You gave birth on a Thursday.
Thursday morning. I had a Thursday morning. I kept her all Thursday morning, all Thursday. Friday I was back in Clinton 4 o'clock. So I spent one full day with her.
And then you had to give her to your family.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been horrible.
Well, it didn't hit me. It didn't hit me until I had got back here. And I was sitting in my dorm. And I went to bend down, and because I was pregnant, I couldn't bend down, and I bent down, and I realized there wasn't nothing on my stomach. And that's when I turned to my roommate, and I started crying. I said, I don't have my baby. You know, I said, they took my baby. I don't have my baby. You know, and then I cried. I must have cried about 2 days. I cried and cried, you know.
You have 3 children. What are their ages?
15, 12, and 5.
What's that been like?
Well, it's been very hard. It's been, I can't describe it in words. It's very painful.
Do you cry about it a lot?
I guess to myself. I don't cry around people, but I do, you know. I know that I would never associate myself with the people that I have. The money, the drugs, the life that I was living, it was fine, but I would never do it again.
Christina Serard was a drug addict when she was on the streets. All she cared about was getting high. So she forged checks, sold drugs, and eventually got caught. When she went to jail, her children lost their mother.
Tell me how difficult it's been being a mother and being in jail.
It's been very difficult. I've been very honest with my children from the beginning. They've visited me here. It's been traumatic for them. When I get out, I will be going to therapy with them. I've lost a lot of time in here with my children, but I've gained a lot for myself. I know more about me now than I could have learned 5 years in the streets. I was a working woman. I had a career. As I said, I was well educated. It didn't mean much to me. When you lose your freedom and your sense of free will, then you start wondering what's really important. When you lose touch with family, friends, then you think.
You're going to get out of jail in a few days.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you're going to do?
I go to my parole officer, and after that I'm seeing my children.
You said that you were going to surprise them.
Yeah, they don't know I'm coming home.
How come you didn't tell your children you're coming home?
I found out that in this system, a lot of things are said that will happen that don't happen. I've learned to keep more inside myself. Plan ahead, yes, but keep it in. When I see my children, I want them to see that Mommy is really out. She's not saying she's coming and then something might have happened. It's important to me to make them happy from now on, more so than me.
So you're going to surprise them?
Yeah.
Where?
At school. I'm picking them up at school.
You haven't done that in a few years?
No, I haven't. And it's going to be nice. They need me back as much as I need them.
Picking her children up from school would have been Christina's first parole violation. She's not allowed to see them. Their father obtained a restraining order. Eventually, all the women you met tonight will be coming home. Some to children, some to no one. They all say they'll try to put being a con behind them. For these women, maybe doing time has killed the criminal instinct. Maybe not. I'm Rosanna Scotto. Good night.